Hello Internet, hello Wotive community, I am Jackie Fox, and I promised you that I would test out my Perene in Arena and tell you how that goes, and I've got a couple more days on that, maybe one or two depending on how lucky I get with shop stuff, but I may actually save my viz and kind of wait it out maybe a third day. So what I was thinking about, what I was interested in the interim while I'm waiting on my Perine to mature, even though she is a mother, apparently. I don't know if we'll ever get to meet her child, but apparently Perine delivers motherly punishment with her hands, with her bare hands, and she will take your team over her knee, she will spank them, and you personally will be into it. That is Perine in a nutshell. She's bulky, quasi-evasive, she can teleport, and she's quite fast. As a strike unit, support is limited for her now, but is a lot better in about 3 months when we get Full Metal Alchemist. Even then, strike is hard to build against. There's no real groundbreaking way to stop strike coming in the future that's going to mitigate this. Crosses fingers and hopes against planning this out and then getting a global exclusive that just screws over strike units or something. But I think that's going to be really difficult because in looking into this, there's some really strong synergies here. But just to kind of cover what she does naturally pretty well, she has a lot of CT up shenanigans that really increase, that take her already high speed and just give her turns. In addition to that, she can give herself haste. She can reliably get close to 100 defense penetration or 100 or over depending on how you have her equipped. And into the future, and with her, I think all she needs is her upcoming vision card. She can hit 90% anti-counter. So very few people can build much more than 20 or 30 resist for strike at best, and no one does it because it's such a rare type to be hit with. She can get her defense penetration up really high, and she can lap people really easily and ignore their counters completely. This just paints the picture of a unit that is reliably hard to deal with and will remain so into the future. So right now, what I'm noticing is that she's good into evasion, although we'll have to talk a little bit more about the team for that, because it's not just her, but she is pretty reliable against earth, light, wind, and especially fire, which is increasingly becoming an evasion-centric element. She is, and I really shouldn't have to say this, an amazing rain counter. He's a magic tank that's fire and weak to strike. He is weak to everything about her. She could look at him wrong and he would fall over dead. One of the cool things that I think is really great about her is that she doesn't need any sort of AP restore to set up. She has a combination of AP cost down, having a pretty efficient kit, and also having acquired AP up. She really doesn't need that kind of stuff, and in fact, especially looking at the way that her AI runs TMR buffs, I don't really think that this girl needs or even wants a TMR buff. I think she wants what's in her kit, and honestly, you might even want her to dig deeper into her own kit. She just has so many good options, and of course I looked this up on JP so that I can't read the name. Shadow Dance, yes, also increases her agility, so at least until she gets hit, but with her move up, hate down, or with a good tank, she's not likely to be target of anything pretty soon, so that really helps her. The thing is, she has to dig really deep into already great buffs that you don't want to turn off to get there, so she won't really use it that often unless you kind of force her to, and I don't really see much of a reason for that. So as opposed to Resnick the Hoppy, let's make some comparisons because they are actually really similar units to have come out like right next to each other like this. She has AoE healing power down, whereas Resnick had single target. Resnick did have a higher healing power down on her LB, which is notable and unique for her. But an AoE, especially a diamond AoE like this, also being the only AoE in her kit, and the way that she gets an additional 40 or 50 defense penetration, getting her up to 100 if you ever built for it, which you probably do. But what that means is, if the tank's up front and the support's like 3 or 4 spaces behind them, you might be able to catch them both in that diamond. So you turn down the amount that the tank can be healed, and you turn down the amount that the healer can heal at the same time. That tank's not coming back. It's a really good healing power down situation. It's kind of reminiscent of, I want to say, Ruinstern had this on an ability, except that she's not nearly as glass cannon-y as he is. She is a bit sturdier, so actually pretty useful. She is probably about as good as being unmitigated. She doesn't have any strike resistance penetration, but that is an oxymoron in Wotive, because what strike resistance? So she doesn't even really need to build for that, which honestly could be a thing that screws her over some undefined point in the future. But for now, she basically doesn't need it. And since she can get her defense penetration pretty high with that vortex kick, she's really good at being unmitigated. She doesn't necessarily have the Swiss Army knife of Resnick the Hoppy's kit and being able to deal with like everything that someone could have, but she does have the HP down, healing power down. She does have courage and protect remove as well. So she really deals with like the important parts of it. She can't do everything, but it's pretty good. And she has good starting slash, pierce, and AoE resistance, and the ability to raise that AoE resistance even higher. In terms of like who you would pair her with now and who I would pair her with in the future, I have drastically different opinions. And honestly, like, I was gonna do the guild battle stuff in this video, but looking into how this character evolves in terms of her place in the meta over the next 3 months, no, this is infinitely the more fascinating story. For right now, she pairs very well with Celeste. I mean, she's just great having a tank to generate hate and kind of keep the heat off of her. That's how she performs her best. She can take a little bit of a hit. She does have a threshold heal, so that is going to help bring her back. But you don't want a lot of sustained aggression at her. And in addition to that, she's not very good into magic. It's not something that I would necessarily encourage you to build her for or include her on a team for. But if you are doing magic matchups, or if this is like a defense team and you don't really have any choice in the matter, Celeste is going to be pretty crucial for a lot of those magic matchups. And honestly, Runic is even pretty good against Skahal right now, because the attacks that he wants to use are all reflectable. Theoretically, he does have unreflectable moves in his kit, but I think that he would be better off in almost every scenario that doesn't involve Runic Blade to turn them off, so why turn them off just for Celeste? You know what I mean? Although, maybe that type of player realizes that and doesn't attack a Celeste on defense. I don't know. Anyways, Celeste can be really helpful for covering that weakness. I did talk about her having a guaranteed hit move, but with only 3 casts in it, with it being single target as well, like, it's a really good move. It's a lot more powerful than something comparable like Unevadable Pain. And it also has a single target resistance down buff on it, which is going to help someone like Summer Elsorel come in with Unevadable Pain and finish somebody off with some relatively big damage. But if you're going to be fighting teams that are more than just a splash of evade, you're going to be wanting to run one of the 3 of the following, and in order of my personal preference for this specific purpose: Summer Elsorel, Astrius, or more, because all of them add guaranteed AoE guaranteed hit, and also multiple casts and different ways of doing it. Moore and Summer Elsorel are also going to have Unavailable Pain, and Summer Elsorel has a Diamond AoE LB that is guaranteed hit as well. Astrius is a really good unit, which is why he was second in order of preference, but he also has the most limited options of the three for dealing with evasive units. His guaranteed hit is 3 spaces next to each other, so that's kind of odd, but it works, and it's relatively cheap, so he can kind of spam it if he has to. So if you're going to go into more evasion heavy teams, you definitely want to have 1 or maybe 2 of these units on the team with Perine to help, and in that situation, Subjugating Fist is going to be so perfect for hitting them for, after they get hit really hard by somebody else, they got a little bit of life left, or they're hanging on with courage. Subjugating Fist, boom, they're gone. Another thing that I'm going to have to test is, and this is kind of conditional, and it's something that some elements can do pretty well. Earth does it really well with like Zazan, Katone, and sometimes in limited Prince Mont. But what I call Rushdown teams, which are a combination of either high mobility or high agility, and the potential for a water Rushdown team with Perine is actually really high. So you're going to be looking at, I think the physical variant of this is probably the best with Farm, Astrius, and Perine. Astrius, unfortunately, is the least mobile of these units, and you might consider replacing him with Celeste to get a tank into the situation, which can help make some things more consistent. But I think that your vision card, if you have really good water physical vision cards, if you have a good selection for that, then it might be better to just lean all the way into that and go without a tank. Especially because you're running Perine with her move +1, which is going to give her hate down, which is going to help her, at least, not need a tank to not get targeted as much. But the idea with these teams is that they can really short circuit certain teams that aren't expecting to get attacked so early in certain ways. They also have high enough mobility to like get around people so that they aren't AoE attacked because they've surrounded the team somehow. Like, especially if you give Farm like 5 move, she will do the most absurd things to get around behind people to attack them. I mean, it gives her a damage and accuracy bonus. I don't blame her. She has 5 move. Why not do it? That's great AI. But, you know, this can be really problematic for a lot of teams. And one of the reasons I like Celeste in here, even though she doesn't quite fit that physical variant, is that she's really good at just running off right off the bat with 4 move and just charging headfirst in and then getting behind them. And if you can get Celeste behind them and any 2 of these other units on the other side where they're all trying to deal with Celeste, you're probably going to win. You're doing good. You're doing good. And these are units that are going to close that gap really fast, and all of a sudden they're surrounded. It's great. Although it is a thing that only really works on certain maps, and the map that we have right now isn't great for testing it, unfortunately, but I'm trying. You might think that a strike team with units like Snow or Raldor, who have cool meta uses right now, Snow being just great and good into wind, Raldor being specifically great against missile, but very specifically against ice missile, which is definitely a weakness, I would say, of Perine. At least for right now, the matchups of missile just aren't great. She's not getting across the... Hey, sorry to butt in, but this is your reminder that Slime is, for all intents and purposes, a strike unit with strike attacks. The field fast enough, she's taking too much damage on the way over, that kind of stuff. But Snow and Raldor are not going to be getting their 140, so they actually don't end up being that relevant to her. Like, at the point where we start getting the VCs to start making strike teams, Snow isn't going to seem as special as he does even now. So into the future 140 meta, in order of their first awakening, Now, some of you out there might be thinking, wait, did you cut Aerith from this video? Why aren't you talking about Aerith? And while Aerith does have some tricky AI that keeps her from seeing a little bit more play, but Aerith is going to be one of the first units to get her 140 ability, so she is definitely going to be relevant for that period of time in which there aren't really the strike units that you need to pair with Perine, but she still works with water. For her dream ability, she's getting HP and AoE resistance, which is going to go a long way to making her more survivable. And that is definitely something that Aerith needed. I'm not as excited about her upgrade, which upgrades her re-raise to give CT up. Although, I guess the fact that it goes from a 20% heal to a 40% heal is probably a lot more impactful. It's just one of the things that I'm not liking about certain reincarnation upgrades, Queen Macherie and Aerith included, is when they upgrade a skill like auto revive and kind of put more skills in that, or put more eggs in that one basket, which is kind of the exact same thing that the job ability upgrade for Queen Macherie had. And it's good when the re-raise is good, but increasingly when the re-raise gets countered for some reason, you've just lost all that extra value that was put into the unit. But I think that the HP and the AoE are going to help her survive and give her some good synergies, especially with some of the builds that you're going to want for Perene. Maybe running something like Winter Holiday Party in a main slot on Aerith, or maybe even Celeste, and then running something like maybe Leviathan in a secondary slot for more AoE resistance. That's optional because AoE resistance doesn't stack well into the second, but we're talking about Perine here, so it might be worth it to run a lot of AoE resistance on her. There is a way even for Aerith to increase her own AoE resistance in her kit, but it's usually not a skill that I recommend that you turn on for her. The other thing that I think makes her interesting is her main heal, especially that it gets upgraded. I don't really understand the way that the upgrades work on Wood of Calc, but apparently it becomes a diamond, basically a diamond Curaga with spirit on it, which means that her kind of most basic heal is going to buff spirit. She also has a really good magic shield that gets all of the characters around her, in addition to her having a really interesting counter ability that, while it's a small heal, it heals all the units around her. So if you're going for an AoE type of setup, and you're going for like facing AoE magic, you're also using Celeste, and you're using Aerith, and these units are grouping up, then Celeste can stop magic incoming with Resnick. At that range, you're going to have the possibility of Aerith having a counter heal for the party, and even if all of that stuff doesn't go through, you're still building a lot of AoE resistance, so especially Perine is surviving if she's getting hit inside of this, and maybe with the AoE resistance, Aerith might survive as well. Moving on.
An early strike team that would lack full VC support for kind of Rainbow Strike would first be Tifa at 140, which I guess you could pair with your 120 Perine. She's still going to be pretty strong early on. And then Perine's going to get her 140, and she's going to be pretty great. And then the third, actually, is Jisa. And while you probably would have the resources to 140 her when she comes out, unless you're really committed to this idea, I wouldn't necessarily do it. And also, you're lacking full VC support at this point, and part of the theoretical VCs that you would have access to are like some of the worst of the final like Strike 6 that are available in JP right now. So really you're probably not going to be doing a strike team quite yet, so we can just ignore Tisa. Now once we get to Full Metal Alchemist, we're getting two strike VCs that I think are the two best probably VCs, and they're you want them main. They are both very good. They come out at the same time. They also come out alongside two of the strike units that I want the most in the future, Edward and Alphonse. And oh my gracious, there are so many fun teams with these. I kind of did a video about some future strike teams and the potential of the Strike 6 VCs. So I won't get too much into it in this video, but what I do want to point out is the synergy with Perine between Edward and Alphonse specifically. If you are willing to save up for FMA, get Edward, Alphonse, and their vision cards along with your Perine, all three of those units have natively high slash and pierce resistance. Edward can actually buff this even further in an AoE pattern, and Al has some slash resist as a part of his big self buff. But the other thing is that the Strike 6 that I mentioned in that previous video, those VCs give a whopping combined 32 missile resistance, which is actually a little bit more than the the slash or pierce resistance you're going to see on either of these boys, at least like naked, you know, without any armor or anything kind of augmenting it, or trust stones or passives or any of that stuff. And then, so what that paints a bit. So what that kind of paints as a picture is that Edward, Alphonse, and Perine can resist slash, pierce, and missile quite effectively, and have a lot of really strong synergy together, which would be a pretty fun team. I also want to point out that Uriel gets her 140 around the same time, and at that point she's going to have 40 base missile resist. The reason that Raldor is so big right now is that he has 45 base missile resist, so this is just a little bit less than that. And then when you add those VCs though, which is far and beyond the amount of missile resist that we can get even with our current best missile resist VCs now, that's going to take that up to 72. So Uriel, again, naked. I mean, like, throw a platinum robe on her and she's already at 82 missile resistance. You know what I mean? This seems like a really easy anti-missile team, which paints the picture that into the future, not only is Perine going to be quite good, but that Perine and Strike as a job class, as a guild, I don't know, how do they organize their job classes? As a set of classes that work directly with their bare hands. Well, not always. What do you call the things that they hold? That's what I want to know. The equipment that I equip to them as weapons, what is that called? Is it a fist? Because that doesn't make sense. The fist is your hand balled up. That's a fist. I know what a glove is. That's for the magic ones. Okay, look. My point is, not only is Perine going to be good, potentially into the future, you also have other chances to pull for her before then, too. This is also a good reason to be getting those 10 shards a day, whether you're pulling her or not. Because you may decide, like, at a warrior or what, Void in the Darkness rerun that you do want Perine. You've got more of the Strike VCs. We're getting closer to Full Metal Alchemist. You're like, yeah, I'm ready to do it now. Because you're ready for everything I just got you hyped up for. But not only is Perine going to be good, but that Strike as its own thing is going to be not only quite powerful and actually have some support for the first time in what, like 3 years in this game? But not only that, but they're going to have a very well-defined niche in being anti-missile. So that's pretty cool. Not only does it make them strong, it gives them something to do. Which is also, like, interesting. Like, the best way to fight people who are shooting at you is to punch them. What kind of Bleach logic is this?